Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Derrick Wren. I'm 36 years old. And I have more money than I ever dreamed possible. You know those Forbes lists with grinning tech entrepreneurs flashing watches and standing in front of glass mansions? That was me. Until everything changed. I didn't grow up with much. Born in a quiet gray town 2 hours outside Portland, I was the only child of James and Linda Wren, names that still make my stomach turn. My father was a mechanic who smelled of oil and beer. My mother, a rigid woman with a frozen smile, treated me like an expense she regretted. The house I grew up in wasn't broken in the traditional sense. It was neat. Tidy. But cold. So cold. The kind of cold that creeps under your skin and makes you afraid to breathe too loud. My father never hit me unless he was drunk. But his voice could make glass crack. And my mother? She never raised her hand. She didn't need to. Her silence was punishment enough. So when I got into Stanford on a full ride, coding, scholarships, nights sleeping in libraries, I told myself I'd never go back. And I didn't. Not for years. By 29, I sold my first cybersecurity startup for $180 million. By 33, I launched my second company, an AI security platform that quietly handled contracts for major banks and three-letter government agencies. Quiet money. Smart money. The kind that gave me the luxury to disappear behind tall fences and let lawyers handle the noise. I met Lana, my wife, at a leadership conference in Vancouver. She was a behavioral scientist, soft-spoken, steel-spined, and she saw right through me. She didn't care about my money. She cared about the fact that I couldn't stop pacing in our hotel room after a phone call with my mother. We got married 3 years later. And when our son Micah was born, something inside me healed, or I thought it had. His laugh, it was the first sound that didn't make me flinch. We built a home on the cliffs above Cannon Beach. Glass, cedar, light. It felt nothing like where I came from. So you might be wondering, if things were that good, why did I take my son to visit the people who ruined me? Because even billionaires make stupid decisions when guilt is involved. It was Lana who suggested it, softly one morning over coffee. Micah deserves to meet your parents, at least once. You said your mom's been asking. I winced. She's been asking for years. And every time I hear her voice, it's like I'm 10 again, getting scolded for existing. Lana reached across the table. You're not that boy anymore, Derrick. You're a father now. Let's do this for Micah. So I did what I always did when faced with that internal storm. I buried it. I agreed. We packed Micah's things, diapers, formula, toys, and made the drive to the town I swore I'd never return to. The house looked different now, renovated, modern. I'd paid for every inch of it over the years. A kitchen remodel. A new roof. Granite countertops. I even bought them a luxury SUV, something my father used to rant about never affording. When we pulled into the driveway that Thanksgiving morning, my mother came out first, arms wide, smile plastered on like cheap wallpaper. My baby. Look at you, so grown, so successful, she squealed, reaching for Micah before Lana could even unbuckle him. And this little angel, oh, he has your eyes, Derrick. My father trailed behind, patting my shoulder hard. Good to see you, son. Real proud of you. Real proud. Pride. From him. It sounded like a trap. Inside, the house smelled of cinnamon and artificial holiday cheer. The table was set, the turkey roasting. Lana tried to make conversation, and I tried to pretend that none of it felt off. But it did. Micah was fussy, tired from the drive, so Lana nursed him, rocked him to sleep upstairs in the guest room, and laid him gently in the portable crib. We stayed up late, mostly silent, Lana watching me. I kept trying to believe this was a good idea. The next morning, my mother made breakfast and suggested Lana and I run to the store for extra butter and cranberry sauce. You two go on. Leave Micah with me, she insisted. You need time together. He'll be fine. Lana looked hesitant. He's only 6 months, Linda. He gets fussy. And please, don't give him any toys with small parts. I saw one yesterday. That plastic rattle with beads. It's not safe. My mother laughed. I raised Derrick just fine, didn't I? Don't worry so much, dear. Go. Get what you need. We stood at the doorway, Lana still holding the keys, looking at me for reassurance. I kissed her temple. 15 minutes, I whispered. We were gone for exactly 23. When we got back, the house was quiet. Too quiet. My father was on the couch, staring at the wall. My mother stood frozen in the hallway, pale, trembling. Micah, she said in a voice I'll never forget. Micah's not breathing. My blood went ice cold. What do you mean he's not breathing? I said, my voice shaking as I dropped the grocery bags. Lana pushed past me, sprinting upstairs toward the guest room. I followed, my legs barely working, every step like running through wet concrete. She was already on her knees at the crib, screaming his name. Micah. Micah, baby, please. He was lying there, still, pale, unmoving. I collapsed beside her and scooped him up. His tiny arms dangled limp. His skin was cool to the touch. His lips had a faint bluish tint. And in that moment, the world spun sideways. I don't remember calling 911. I just remember screaming. And Lana sobbing so hard her body shook against mine. The paramedics arrived fast, but not fast enough. A woman with tight blonde hair and kind eyes took Micah from my arms and placed him on the floor, performing CPR as her partner prepared a portable oxygen tank. The house, my parents' house, was filled with the sounds of medical equipment, commands, and Lana's broken cries. I stared at the doorway. My mother stood there with a dish towel in her hand. My father hovered behind her, silent, like a man already burying a lie. Officer Rojas and Officer Patel from the local department arrived shortly after. Rojas, a tall black man with solemn eyes, asked the routine questions. Who was the last to see the child? What was he doing before he was found? Were there any toys or objects nearby? My mother answered between sobs. I just went to the bathroom. He was fine. Just playing in the crib. I was only gone a minute. But then Officer Patel found something. A broken plastic ring, tiny colorful beads scattered across the crib's mattress. Lana gasped. That toy. I told you not to give him that. I told you it was dangerous. My mother looked stunned. I didn't, he was chewing on something, I thought it was the teething ring. She ignored me, Lana said, turning to me now. I told her yesterday. Dean, I told her. Her voice was raw. Accusatory. I couldn't blame her. The autopsy confirmed it the next week. Micah had choked on one of the beads. The toy had split, one of the plastic parts lodging in his windpipe. The cause of death was asphyxiation due to a foreign object. The word accident was written in the report. But in my heart, it didn't feel like an accident. I knew my mother. I knew her cruelty. And I knew this wasn't just neglect. This was something else. Lana and I buried Micah on a cold gray morning in Seattle, the sky weeping like us. The tiny white coffin was lowered into the ground as Lana held my hand so tight I thought she might break it. Neither of my parents spoke during the ceremony. But they were there, standing just far enough away that it didn't feel like mourning. It felt like observation. I couldn't sleep for nights after that. I'd sit in Micah's old nursery, rocking in the chair where Lana used to hum lullabies. Staring at the mobile above his crib. Wondering if I had killed my son by bringing him into that house. Lana wouldn't look at me for days. She wasn't angry at me, but the grief put a distance between us. One I didn't know how to cross. And then came the nightmare that would rip the scab open all over again. 3 weeks after the funeral, my parents showed up at our house. Uninvited. "We couldn't bear the thought of you being alone in that big house," my mother said, her voice all sugar and thorns. "We just want to help. We're family, Derrick." Family. That word used to mean something. Now it felt like a poison. I didn't have the strength to argue. Lana gave a stiff nod, and I let them in. They cooked for us. Cleaned. Acted like model grandparents who had just endured a tragedy. But every time I saw my mother smile, I felt the hairs on my neck rise. One morning, Lana pushed her breakfast plate away. "I feel off," she said. "Like I haven't slept in a week. Dizzy. Foggy." I nodded. "I've been feeling it too. It got worse. Migraines. Disorientation. Even hallucinations." I told myself it was trauma. Grief. The crushing weight of losing Micah. Until I walked in on my mother whispering into her phone in the garage. "I know. Just give me more time. They're not asking questions yet." She froze when she saw me. Then smiled. "Just a friend from church." I wanted to believe her. But something in my gut whispered louder. We weren't healing. We were being hunted. I started watching everything after that. Every movement. Every smile. Every plate of food. Lana and I were deteriorating. The fatigue wasn't just from grief anymore, it felt physical, chemical. Like something inside us was shutting down. We'd both started waking up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, our hearts pounding like war drums. Even the sunlight seemed too bright. Everything was off. One morning, while I was in the upstairs study trying to focus on work, Lana came in quietly and shut the door behind her. Her face was pale. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. "Derrick," she said in a whisper, "I don't think we're safe." I blinked. Safe? She sat down across from me. "Your mother. Your father. I don't think this is just grief. I think something is wrong. Something's really wrong." I didn't respond at first. But I didn't dismiss it either. "What are you saying?" I finally asked. "I think they're poisoning us." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. "Lana." She held up her hand. "Just listen. Ever since they got here, since they started cooking all our meals, bringing us tea at night, we've been falling apart. This isn't just sadness. This feels induced." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her she was being paranoid. But deep down, I'd been feeling it too. I reached for my phone and opened the app linked to our home security system. We had indoor cams, but only in the nursery and hallway, not the kitchen. Until now, I'd never had a reason to question what went on in that space. But I did now. That afternoon, while my parents were out getting groceries, I installed a hidden camera in the kitchen. One small enough to be invisible behind the spice rack. Another under the cabinet facing the island where most of the prep happened. 3 days later, I reviewed the footage. At first, it was boring, just my mother humming and chopping vegetables. But then, on the third recording, I saw her reach into her apron pocket and pull out a small glass vial. Unlabeled. She opened it carefully, glanced around, and sprinkled something into the tea mugs, mine and Lana's. I paused the video. My hands were shaking. I called Lana into the room. We watched it together. "Play it again," she whispered, her voice trembling. We did. There was no mistaking it. My mother was poisoning us. I rushed to the kitchen, found the vial tucked behind the flour bin, and sealed it in a Ziploc bag. Then I called a friend from Stanford, a biochemist now working in a private lab just outside Portland. I told him I needed a full analysis, under the table. No questions asked. He agreed. I drove the vial to him that same night. 2 days later, the results came back. Thallium sulfate. A slow-acting poison. Tasteless. Odorless. Used historically for pest control. Banned in most countries due to its lethal properties. Small doses over time lead to neurological decline, hair loss, organ damage, and death. Lana sat beside me on the couch when I read the report. I was right, she whispered. She's killing us. I felt the rage rise in my throat. Like bile. Like fire. I wanted to scream. Smash something. But instead, I swallowed it. No, I said, my voice low. We're not going to react. We're going to plan. Because if my mother had been capable of this, maybe Micah's death hadn't been an accident after all. And I was done living in fear. My hands were still trembling when I closed the lab report. Thallium sulfate. Poison. Murder in teaspoons. I looked at Lana, who hadn't said a word since reading the analysis. Her face was stone, but her eyes were wet. She didn't just kill our son, Derrick, she said finally. She's trying to kill us too. There was no longer any doubt. My parents, had murdered Micah and were trying to slowly erase Lana and me next. For what? The inheritance? Access to my company? Because they believed they were owed more. Maybe all of it. The rage inside me boiled over. I wasn't just angry, I was strategic. I was no longer the scared little boy cowering in a broken-down house. I was Derrick Wren. Tech CEO. Billionaire. A man who built systems to detect and destroy threats. And now I had 2 threats living in my guest room. I'm going to bring them down, I told Lana. But I won't do it loud. Not yet. What do we do first? She asked. We gather more evidence. I contacted a trusted private investigator, Jack Abrams. A former FBI tech analyst who now ran his own discreet surveillance and digital intel company. I'd helped fund his startup years ago. And now, he owed me a favor. Within 48 hours, Jack had installed additional hidden cameras, 1 in the garage, 2 in the living room, and another pointed toward the hallway where my father often took calls. The next move? A digital sweep of my father's phone. Jack's tech intercepted the device's outgoing and incoming signals by piggybacking through our guest Wi-Fi. After a day of silent listening, Jack called me. You need to hear this, he said. He played a recorded call from my father's line. I told you, Carol's doing it slowly. No, they won't suspect a thing. She's slipping it in with his evening tea. He's losing focus already. The wife too. Just a matter of time. After that, we'll get the account access. My throat closed up. My knees gave out. The air felt thick. I let out a bitter laugh, one that felt hollow. After that, we'll get the account access. My son was dead. My wife and I were being poisoned, and all for money. Lana gripped my hand so tightly her nails dug into my skin. What do we do now? She asked again. I turned to her slowly. We set the trap. The setup. I met with my attorney, Sarah Vega, one of the most ruthless prosecutors turned defense lawyers in the city. She once brought down a pharmaceutical executive who poisoned patients in a Medicaid fraud scheme. I showed her everything. The camera footage of my mother spiking our drinks. The voice recordings from my father. The lab report. The purchase receipts for the plastic toy we warned them about. And one more thing, Jack had retrieved a deleted voicemail my mother left the night Micah died. It was addressed to a friend in hushed panic. It worked. I don't know how I feel. But it worked. The baby, he choked. Sarah's face didn't flinch. Derrick, she said, we can build a case. This is more than enough for the DA. But it'll move faster with confessions. How do we get that? I asked. She smiled. Cold. Sharp. We give them the illusion of safety. And then we break them apart. The bait. We arranged a quiet dinner, just the 6 of us. Lana cooked. My parents sat at the table like they always did, acting like warm, grieving grandparents. I installed one more camera. This time, in plain sight. They didn't even notice. Halfway through the meal, I cleared my throat. My mother glanced up. My father was chewing loudly on the roast chicken. I've been thinking, I began, setting my wine glass down. About putting you both on the trust. My mother stopped mid-bite. The company's grown too big, I continued casually. If something happened to me, someone should be able to access the funds. And I want it to be you. Her eyes lit up like a bonfire. Derrick, that's generous. My father smirked. About time. Family should take care of family. Lana said nothing. She just smiled softly, her hands folded politely in her lap. We'll need to meet with my lawyer tomorrow, I added. She wants to verify everything. ID, signatures, background info. My mother nodded too quickly. Of course. Anything you need. And just like that, the hook was in their mouths. That night, I sent Sarah the footage. She reviewed it carefully, then messaged back 2 words. We're ready. Tomorrow, we'd invite them to what they believed was a trust meeting. But in truth, it would be the first time they'd see the truth play out on screen, with police, prosecutors, and the devil they raised staring back. The morning of the trust signing, I could barely hold the pen in my hand. Not from nerves. From rage. Controlled. Contained. Weaponized. Lana stood beside me in our sunlit foyer, dressed in quiet elegance, black slacks, a soft cream blouse, hair pinned tight. But her eyes were cold steel. They don't suspect a thing, she whispered as we heard my parents laughing faintly in the kitchen. My mother had even baked scones. As if sugar could erase murder. At precisely 10 a.m., Sarah Vega arrived, flanked by a man in a tailored navy blue suit. Detective Cal Morales. Seattle PD, Organized Crime Division. A man who had once taken down a ring of white-collar fraudsters in high society wine clubs. He knew evil when it wore perfume and polos. I greeted them at the front door. This way, I said calmly, leading them to the dining room. My parents were already seated, mugs of herbal tea in front of them, tea they had prepared. A fitting symbol, I thought. They'd been feeding us poison for weeks. And now, they were about to swallow their own. Mom. Dad, I said as I pulled out a chair. This is Sarah Vega, my attorney. And this is Mr. Morales. He's here to verify documents on behalf of the financial institution managing my trust. I watched my mother's eyes flicker. A ripple of caution. My father, however, just leaned back smugly. Well, it's about damn time we handled this like professionals, he said, chuckling. All these millions, and your old man still drives the SUV you gave him 5 years ago. Sarah smiled politely. Shall we begin? She pulled out a sleek laptop, connected it to the mounted TV on the wall, and opened a folder labeled simply. Truth. The screen came to life with muted audio and surveillance footage. Clip number 1, my father under the hood of my car the night before the brake failure. Clip number 2, my mother sprinkling a white substance from a glass jar into our tea mugs. Clip number 3, my parents' recorded call, my father's voice whispering, "She's doing it slowly, after that, we'll get the account access." Silence fell like a bomb. My mother's face drained of color. My father sat up, his mouth slightly open. "What is this?" Detective Morales stepped forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Wren, this is evidence of attempted murder. Conspiracy. Homicide of a minor. We've obtained a warrant. Officers are stationed outside." "You can't be serious," my father barked. "This is entrapment. You set us up." "No," I said quietly. "You did." My mother's hands trembled. "Derrick, please, it wasn't supposed to go this far." Lana stepped forward then, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "You murdered our son." My father jumped to his feet. "Watch your mouth, girl." Detective Morales pulled a pair of handcuffs from his belt. "That's enough." "You have no right," my father growled, backing away. Sarah stood and played the final card. From the speaker came my mother's voice in a voicemail, shaky and low. "It worked. I don't know how I feel. But it worked. The baby," he choked. And there it was. The air cracked. My mother let out a shriek. My father lunged forward, but Morales and two uniformed officers stepped in from the hallway, slamming him against the dining room wall. "James Wren, you are under arrest for the murder of Micah Wren, and the attempted murder of Derrick and Lana Wren." As they cuffed him, my mother collapsed to the floor, sobbing. We needed help, we gave you everything when you were young." "No," I said, looking down at her. "You gave me nothing. You took everything. And now, it's your turn." They were both led out of the house. Neighbors watched. Reporters arrived an hour later. But I didn't care about the noise. The only sound I wanted was silence. The kind that meant they'd never step foot in my life again. You'd think that after watching your parents get dragged away in handcuffs for murdering your child, things couldn't get worse. You'd be wrong. 2 weeks after the arrests, Lana and I met Sarah Vega in her downtown office, a steel and glass fortress overlooking Puget Sound. She looked tired, her eyes rimmed red, folders stacked in front of her like a mountain of grief. "I need to show you something," she said, motioning us to sit. I braced myself. Lana reached for my hand. Sarah placed a thick envelope on the table. "This came from the DA's office this morning. It's a supplemental packet from your parents' financial and digital forensics investigation." She opened it. Inside were dozens of pages, bank statements, purchase histories, offshore transfers. But one sheet had a bold red tag across the top. "Confidential, deleted file recovery, secure drive found in garage safe." She pulled it out. And what I saw shattered what little trust one had left in the past. It was a notarized document. Signed. Dated. A custodial power of attorney. Naming my mother as emergency guardian of Micah Wren in the event of my or Lana's death or inability to parent. "What the hell is this?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Sarah looked grim. "It appears your mother had legal paperwork drawn up, weeks before Thanksgiving. She intended to claim custody of Micah if anything happened to you. She also took out an insurance policy in your name. A separate one on Micah's life. She forged your signature on both." Lana gasped. "That's why she asked to watch him. That's why she insisted we leave." I felt sick. The room spun. The couch beneath me may as well have vanished. "She planned this," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Not just the poisoning. Not just the accident. She wanted to own him. Or the insurance money. Or both." Sarah nodded. "And if you and Lana had both died in that car crash, she would have had legal guardianship. She would have gone on interviews. Maybe even talked about how tragic it was on national TV. All while spending your inheritance and laundering your assets. I felt like I was drowning. Every memory of my childhood, every fragile moment when I tried to believe they were human, erased. Lana, silent for a long time, finally said, "They didn't just kill Micah. They built a future on his grave." We sat in silence for a long time. Until Sarah broke it again. "There's more," she said. "Your father had reached out to a former associate, a known identity forger in Nevada. They were preparing to change their names and disappear. I believe they had plans to fake a kidnapping, possibly even frame you." My jaw tightened. It had never been just greed. It was premeditated, surgical destruction. And still, we wouldn't have known the whole truth, if not for that safe in the garage. Jack, the investigator, was the one who found it. He'd been sweeping for signs of tampering with my car, and found a digital safe hidden under the rear bench tool cabinet. Inside were drives, hard copies, and a backup burner phone. My father had documented everything. Voice memos. Plans. Messages between him and my mother about waiting for the right moment, and letting the child go quietly. One memo ended with his voice saying, "He'll never suspect it. He still wants to believe we love him." That line broke me. Because it was true. For 36 years, I tried to believe that. But the final, cruel twist. One document, dated 2 weeks before Micah's death, was a transfer of property deed, my mansion, listed to be handed over to Wren Family Holdings, LLC. A company my mother had secretly registered in Wyoming. They weren't just stealing my future. They were rewriting it as if I'd never existed. But they made one mistake. They underestimated the son they tried to erase. The courtroom was silent, dead silent, when I took the stand. It was nearly a year to the day since Micah's death. The trial of James and Linda Wren, my parents, had drawn national attention. Wealth, betrayal, poison tea, forged documents, a dead baby boy, the media had already branded it. The billionaire son who took his parents down. But to me, it was never about spectacle. It was about Micah. And Lana. And the future they tried to erase. The prosecution laid out the timeline like a storybook dipped in poison. Motive, greed, inheritance, resentment over being left behind. Means, thallium sulfate, brake tampering, forged guardianship papers. Opportunity, Thanksgiving weekend, when we were most vulnerable. The footage played on monitors around the courtroom. My mother sprinkling poison. My father under the hood of the car. The voicemail about Micah. Every frame landed like a punch. When it was my turn to speak, I stood slowly, using the cane I'd needed since the crash. I looked at the jury, not with tears, but with clarity. My parents didn't just try to kill me, I said. They killed the part of me that believed in family. I paused. Took a breath. They didn't just steal my son. They tried to steal who I am. But I survived. My wife survived. And I'm here to make sure they never get the chance to do it again. I turned my gaze to my parents. My father looked hollow, sunken. My mother wept behind her hands, but her tears felt, practiced. The verdict didn't take long. Guilty on all counts. First-degree murder of Micah Wren. Attempted murder of Derrick and Lana Wren. Conspiracy, forgery, and fraud. Malicious tampering of a motor vehicle. Life sentences. No parole. My father shouted as the verdict was read. You have no right. You're not my son. My mother collapsed into her chair, muttering prayers to a God she'd abandoned the moment she took a teaspoon of death and called it love. I didn't look at them again. 1 year later. Lana and I live in a smaller home now. A coastal cottage with large windows and a view of the sea. The mansion is gone, sold, all proceeds donated to a child safety foundation we created in Micah's name. The Micah Wren Foundation funds safe toy awareness, parenting education, and grief counseling for families who've lost children under suspicious circumstances. We speak at conferences. We sponsor new legislation. We put our pain to work. And best of all, we are parents again. Lana gave birth to Elijah Dean Wren 6 months ago. He has his mother's laugh and Micah's eyes. Every day, I hold him a little tighter. I never take it for granted. We visit Micah's grave often. Lana sings lullabies. I sit in silence. Sometimes, I talk to him. Not as a ghost. Not as a shadow. But as my son. My first son. And I tell him. We survived. We healed. We're safe now. And your name will never fade. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.